All right, I think we can get started here. Thank you all for coming. We've got a great turnout. I think it speaks to the importance of events and hosting events at the brewery, and how that can, what today we'll talk about is how having events at your brewery can really help your business grow and expand your audience and bring revenue to your tap rooms. So my name's Chloe Kay. I'm with the New York State Brewers Association. With me on our panel, we have Eric Gearity from SingleCut, Kurt Borchardt of Artisanal Brewworks, and Teresa Campbell of SingleCut Beersmiths. So thank you guys for being here. And we're going to keep this really informal. We want it to be a conversation and really just talk about everything that goes into planning an event, executing KPIs, how can you measure your success of an event, and just talk about unique things that you can do to get people to come to your brewery. So without further ado, we're going to kind of just go through some general questions to get the conversation rolling and just go from there. So to start off, we'll talk about what kind of factors do you guys consider when you're planning an event and coming up with ideas and how to make those align with your brand.
Obviously, the major consideration is it beneficial to the bottom line. But what we're looking to do is sort of. Oh yeah. All right. How's that? All right. Sorry. So what we look to do is engage our customers. We operate in the downtown of a community that's a commuting zone. People leave during the day and come back in the evening. And a lot of times when they're coming back home, once they take the train or finish their commute, they're now in mom and dad mode, and they're looking to get home. So it's not a place where foot traffic is the norm. So we found that doing events, you don't need a major excuse to get people to go out, but you need some excuse. And people, when you do events, people can find kind of their like-minded community, people that they know that they're going to come in and enjoy hanging out with. So we, post-pandemic, have shifted to basically scheduling events almost every night that we're open, and it's kind of kept the doors open for us.
So I'm with Artisanal Brewworks, Saratoga Springs. I'm outside of downtown Saratoga Springs, so some people, their location allows people to, they don't have to do much. People are going to show up because of where they're located. Other people have pipe, and they don't have to do much because they have pipe. And then there's most everybody else that's located in non-ideal locations, a little bit out of the way, whatever, and you have to market. And that's where I'm at. So I have to bust my ass every single day to market, to get people to come from out of downtown, where, in Saratoga, it's a magnet. People park downtown, walk all over. So when I'm marketing, part of what I'm thinking is, in events, is what's going to pull people out of downtown. And then, a lot of that is community driven. Those are real good events for us. It makes everyone feel good. You're going to expose yourself to new people. And then things like, some of the obvious ones like mountain biking. So I've got mountain biking trails right behind my brewery. So that's something that I've been working at. There's some issues that I'm working through. I can't market it officially because I don't have official use of all these trails, but I have unofficial use. So I have to just have we're just having a mountain bike event, but then they're going to go ride the trails. But you just gotta think about your particular situation, and then how do you want to make it fit for your brand. We've done some of the ones that stand out as far as really fun and community engaging. One was, there's a couple therapeutic horses. It's out just outside of Saratoga. It's where they take old thoroughbred horse races. They're retired. And then they have just different people that'll come there, people that are, struggle with human interactions. They're rehabilitating from drugs or being in jail, whatever. So it's the therapeutic part is that these are people engaged with these horses and helping them, have a retirement life on a farm. So we did an event where we had the therapeutic horses, people come to the brewery. We did stuff at their farm, but we came to the brewery, had them bring a couple horses, and the one thing that we did, which was, I don't know whether it's good or bad, but it did work out well. So we had people pay a $25 donation at the door, and what they got for it was free beer. So my donation was just giving someone a beer, so I was able to keep track of it by the tickets. So at the end of the day, I could just write off, whatever, $300, $400 in beers. So there's just different, avenues, and every situation is very fluid, and you're just trying to make it make sense for you, but also the community. If you're doing something for the community, what makes sense, and you're trying to help people out.
You bring up a good point about community. How many of you in the room right now are kind of doing collaborative events with your hometown and where your brewery is? Great, that's great to see, yeah. It's a great way to build a good audience and get people to your brewery. Teresa, did you want to add anything to that?
Another question for the group. How many people have more than one tap room or are thinking of opening another tap room? Awesome, that's awesome, congratulations. What we found with opening the second space was completely different from our first space in Queens. In Queens, they are in the New York City boroughs. For us in Clifton Park, we're in the suburbs. So we found with COVID, folks were moving away from the city and then into the suburbs, and they knew our brand already, so we needed to be able to offer that brand consistency and familiarity to make it feel like they were back in the place that they fell in love with in the first place. With being in the suburbs compared to the city as well, we find that that's easier to make upsells for events with merchandise, with specialty beer, because folks have cars. They don't need to perhaps go on the subway or use public transportation, so they're easier to carry those cases, carry a tree that they may have made in a plant and zip event. Not to say, I've seen some weird stuff carried on the subway, so not to say that people don't. It makes them more likely up here perhaps to dress up for an event, such as Oktoberfest. And then we also have the dog situation as well, so we make dog-friendly events because our space is not a production facility, so we're able to have dogs inside and outside, unlike our Queen space, which is a production space, so dogs aren't allowed inside. So just knowing the audience based on the location of the space was crucial for us, not trying to replicate it inch by inch, but knowing what could be replicated and what had to be changed for the specific location. And we're still learning every day.
So when hosting events at your brewery, two big reasons why you can do that is catering to your kind of general audience that you're already engaging with and keeping them engaged and interested in coming back to the tap room. But then another reason you may do it is to try to do something new to reach a new demographic and bring someone that maybe has never come to your brewery before. Example, I used to work at Custom Brew Crafters in Rochester, New York. Anyone familiar with that brand? It was one of the first breweries, craft breweries in the Rochester area. And we kind of had an older demographic, and the type of music we were bringing in really catered to that older demographic and, trivia nights, things like that. But we decided that we wanted to start to bring some younger people in. So we would do things like 90s parties and bring in some new bands. And at first it was a little tough because we might bring a new band that doesn't cater to our audience, and not many people came, but we kind of had to find that balance where we just stuck to consistently trying something new until finally the word got out and we did start to bring in that younger demographic. So my question for you guys is, how do you go about when you're planning your events, balancing what you're going to do to keep your existing demographic engaged, but while also mixing in some new things to bring new people in?
Well, not all events are created equal, and some events are more for the feeling it provides to the customers, and the buy-in and the loyalty you're going to get, and other events are just, you know, the ones that are going to pack the house. So it's always a balance. We have just a single room tap room, so when we have events, all of our customers are going to experience them. So we are conscious not to alienate our regular customer base. We want to always do things that people will, you know, have a broad range of, you know, ability for customers to enjoy it. That being said, we partnered with the LGBTQ Loft Night Out, and they do once a month a Thursday event in our space, which we were afraid that would be something that you know, could conflict with some customers. We've had some exchanges on our Google reviews, I guess, with people that are not interested in you know, being open and welcoming to all the community. So, but that was not the case, and I gotta say, like, people are generally, you know, positively respond to the events that you host, but you know, we have had to deal with you know, comedy nights. The material is you know, can be a little aggressive, so we that's the only event that we speak to, and communication is key when doing events, and especially if outside, you know, people are organized, it's not totally in-house, and you know, you set parameters and guidelines, and so what we decided to do, because we're not interested in censorship, and you won't know what people are going to necessarily say or do if you know, have you know, open mic or comedy shows or, you know, stuff like that. So just, you know, be very very communicative and make sure they understand, like, your hate speech policy and stuff like that, and understand that, like, you control the stage, you control the mic. So never, like, you know, even if you're bringing in other community organizers to hold events in your space, like, it's a collaboration, it's a partnership. You know, don't abdicate your responsibility to other organizations, because if you do events regularly in your tap room, you know better than anybody else how the space works, and you know, how to you know, control the flow of everything. So they probably will not have thought it out to the same level that you would have. You have a better plan, so don't abdicate your responsibility and just turn your tap room over to people. Like, you know, partner with people, and it becomes, you know, it increases the value.
Yeah, so Artisanal Brewworks has historically had a pretty diverse demographic, and that makes marketing challenging. And I think that's something that's going to come up a little later, is how we get the word out.
Yeah. Everyone's ready to move on. If you guys are, did you have anything to add to that, Teresa? Are you ready to move on to marketing?
Let's move on, let's go.
Sweet. Yeah, marketing is like the hardest part, I think,
Yes.
maybe for running your events. So let's dive right into it. What works, what doesn't,
Yeah.
success stories?
So, because we have a diverse audience, you know, the young kids, yeah, so you have to get the word out, right? And that's the hardest, most frustrating part. If there's one job, I've done all the jobs in the brewery, as an owner. I started out as a brewer, like most people, you're brewing and you're doing everything. And now I'm predominantly the marketing. I run the, I lead everything, but marketing and then doing the finances, the financial stuff is my prominent role, which is really fun. So, anyone that knows, I'm not serious. I mean, I do like it, but it's not the sexy part of owning a brewery. It's the necessary part. So with the marketing, I think it's probably the most frustrating job that you can possibly give anybody if you're not doing it yourself, because you don't know if it's going to work. And the thing that frustrates me is I could make the coolest reel, spend all this time, and then it flops. I could do a live stream, showing a band play with zero effort, a couple comments, and it blows up. And you're like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. Just frustrating that you can spend a lot of time making content that doesn't work. So you kind of got to play an Instagram versus Facebook. The one suggestion I would have is if you need to get the word out, you can't rely on the algorithm. Unless you're the hype brewery that can just post, hey, we got a new beer, and then it's just like, oh, 88 likes. Oh, wow, this is great. Most people aren't that person, so if you need to get the word out, you need to pay. That's just how it works. You don't fool yourself. So then it's going to come down to your demographic. So if I'm doing something that's predominantly going to be slated towards the older crowd, then I'm gonna spend more money on Facebook, and I'm not going to spend much money on Instagram. If I'm trying to get both, well, I'm going to spend equally. Or if I'm trying to get the young people, I'm going to invest more on the Instagram. So I don't know how many people here use the Meta. What's the name of that?
Meta ads or?
No, well, the ads, but what do they call that? The ads. Business Suite, yeah. So Ads Manager is your friend. You go into Ads Manager, you make an ad. So they have campaigns. It's broken up into 3. You make your campaign, and then what I'll do is I'll do a campaign, but then I'll do an ad that's just for Facebook and just for Instagram. The reason why I do that is I'm forcing the algorithm on Instagram to push it through that. I'm forcing the algorithm to push it through Facebook. And then what you can see is you can see how your reach is. And you can see which is really helpful to me, is the age group demographic. Because you can just click on the results and you can see, okay, the first thing I look at is Facebook versus Instagram, and we're getting good reach, and sometimes I don't see anything on Facebook or anything on Instagram because I forgot to turn the darn thing on. Like, I'll turn ads on and off, like I'll set the time longer if I need. I just mess around with the timing a little bit. It's just a curb problem.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Just a couple tips too that I've seen with success with Meta ads, and it's really important too to make one specific for Instagram and specific for Facebook. Also, just because the platforms serve the images and videos differently, but make sure when you go. How many of you are using the Meta Suite right now? So do you notice, it gives you some options when you go, what's your goal? Do you want to get more link clicks? Do you want more engagement? Things like that. I seem to have more success with the NYSBA events when we do more engagement. So basically, you're serving the ad to get more people to like, comment, or share on that post. And I end up looking, you can see how much money you spend per engagement or click. We have a much higher return on investment and a much greater reach when we set our campaign goal to engagement. So that's one big tip. And the other thing too is make sure you set your audience to 21 plus when you go to your audience, because if you don't, Facebook will flag you as being out of compliance, and then you've kind of got a target on your back and they don't leave you alone. Every time you make an ad, they're like, hey, this is against our regulations to promote alcohol. So that's kind of another quick tip. And then the last tip, it's kind of a hack. When you are doing an engagement-based social campaign, after it's over, you can go through your Facebook feed and look to see how many people liked it, and you click on the likes, and you can invite every single person who liked that post to follow your page. So it's kind of like getting a little extra bonus on your investment. But yeah, anyone else have anything to add with like Facebook campaigns and stuff?
It's been super helpful for us to see the demographic that we should be marketing towards. It is, of course, more binary, unfortunately, but we can see female identifying folks tend to like our pages in our Syracuse location, but here in the Clifton Park location, it's more male identifying older generation, so that helps us inform what kind of both events that we want to work towards to cater to that group, and also the new groups that we want to bring into the tap room. Going really quickly into marketing, and then I think we sort of started to talk about legal and compliance as well. I'm going to say something, and it might be controversial, but I believe radio is not dead, because our strongest marketing campaign here in the Capital Region is through an independent radio station called EQX. We take out ad space with them. We do a bi-weekly live stream with them on the radio and on Facebook Live. And for large events, such as a Grateful Dead concert that we held in the fall, we did a discount for tickets, because this was a ticketed event that we had, and we used the discount exclusively for EQX listeners. So then we were able to see how many people that reached, how many people used that discount. So it was really great for KPIs and for seeing just the impact of where we could see where those dollars were going, that our money was where our mouth, my mouth was talking about the events. And then the radio station was really great. They catered some of their sessions, some of their special shows around this concert. They played the band that we were having for that concert on the radio, and that reached 11 counties over 3 or 4 states, and it was incredible to see the people coming in saying, I heard about you from the radio, oh, you're the folks from the radio. So it's that real-time customer feedback that is so crucial to us. And then, do we want to talk about legal and compliance?
As far as the marketing component goes, the benefit of partnering with influencers or other groups is then now your message is amplified. So, with Facebook, you're able to tag people when, I don't know, go on groups or something. I don't do the social media, but, with Instagram, then, you can share stories or tag, I believe. But, but you definitely amplify your message when you work with other people in your community. And also for us, believe it or not, the best promotional material that we put out is our weekly email. We do a newsletter every week that my wife does an incredible job with, and our open rate is phenomenal. And people talk about it that are in the tap room, and whenever anyone is around and says, "Oh, I didn't know this was happening," people in our customers will say, "Oh, you're not on the newsletter." So don't dismiss the value of something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. The newsletter is a major, it's overlooked by so many. How many of you in here are using a newsletter right now to promote your brewery? So it's a good amount. Do you guys all have success with that, for the most part? So if you're not doing a newsletter, and, actually, my next question, how many of you have a dedicated marketing person at your brewery? So a little bit fewer. If you don't, I highly recommend, it's tough, I know money is tight for many right now, but if you don't have a dedicated marketing person, it's really worth investing in, even if it's just a few hours a week, even if they're just going to do you a newsletter, you start with something like that. But I think you'll definitely see results when you have someone dedicated to sending out a consistent message, because when you don't have someone set to doing that, it's like you're all busy, you don't have time to necessarily stop and do a social media post or put together an email. So if you've got someone assigned to that, then you've got a consistent message going out, and you're really going to start growing that audience and keeping them engaged with you. We have some other topics to go over, but we do have time. I was just saying.
I just want to circle back to your experience. How do you measure your success? Is it likes? Is it reach? Where does it come back to the brewery when you
Yeah, at the end of the day, butts and seats. That's all that matters. So what I do is I walk around and I talk to people. So the thing that I've done as an owner, which is a bit of a change, is now, you can't just rely on good beer and good food and a nice environment to bring people in. You have to be present. You need to have someone that's the face of your business that people want to talk to, and so that's been my role on the weekends, and during the week I try and make as many customer touches, good touches. So I'll ask people, how'd you hear about us? And oh, I saw you on Instagram, I saw you on Facebook. That's it. Otherwise it's just the numbers can be meaningless.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that, so it just seems like you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow them. Well, following on Instagram is different from you placing an ad on Instagram.
Yeah.
And getting that person going for yourself.
Yeah.
You gotta, in a way, you have to take that further. Well, did you come because the ad responded, or it's because you followed us?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it kind of gets the message
Yeah.
across the
Yeah.
that.
And the algorithm just constantly freaking changes. Just drives me up a wall. I don't know about anyone else here, but good God. There's times where I just want to put a gun in my head and I'm like, what the heck? Last week, 2 weeks ago, I would do this post and it would have garnered 50, 100 likes, and now it's getting like 13. You're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So that's where you drive yourself crazy.
Beating the algorithm's really hard. It is always changing, but something too that's important when you're talking about your ads and if you're reaching your regulars or that, it comes to how you set your audience. You can set your audience based on where they live, interests. You can also do lookalike audiences, so people who like my page and people like them type of deal. That's kind of people see a lot of success with that. If you guys want to talk more about marketing, we're doing pretty well on time. Is that something that you guys all want to keep discussing? Are there questions out there?
I want to bring up reels for a second.
I was going to bring it up. That's great.
Well, all right.
Perfect.
So, you can spend a lot of time making a nice reel and it may not go very far. If you want to really learn about the reels and how much people actually watch, you can buy like software or whatever that will give you some analytics. I've bought some stuff in the past and it's just a waste of time. But if you pay for the marketing, through the Meta, what you'll get is, I always, if I'm gonna do a reel, you set it, instead of like going for engagement or number of likes, you can go through playthrough. So what playthrough definition is that someone's watched it for 15 seconds. So you're not gonna pay for that reel unless they watch it for 15 seconds. So what you'll see in the data is that a ton of people see maybe like the first 2 seconds. So that, it's just unbelievable how many people just see a couple seconds. So then that informs your hook. The hook's the most important thing on anything you do, whether it's a static image and that first sentence that's in Instagram. Facebook shows a little more, Instagram only shows like the first sentence. So that's something that I've really focused on is that hook. So if you're going to do a reel, now what you got to think about is, okay, in that first second, I need to have something that tells, it has a hook person to watch the rest. And I've had 3 different people that work for me in marketing, and they struggle with that hook. They understand the hook, but they don't. They recognize the hook, but they don't understand. So, like for example, last week I had something where it was about St. Patrick's Day, and the hook was, it's always stout season. And I let them run with it. I'm like, that's fine, but like really, it is stout season. Why is that going to hook someone to watch the rest? And the rest of the reel was awesome, but the hook wasn't there, so it didn't get that great of a response. It was a great reel.
Look, you can use a, for a hook too, you can just kind of use like a cryptic, you can pick the thumbnail that's going to be on your video, and you can do something that's kind of cryptic, like what the heck am I looking at? And people will watch it, but
So you want to sweat the details for that first second. That's at the end of the day. If you're doing a reel, that first second better have something really engaging.
I see what you did. It's very funny.
Yeah.
Does everyone know what we're talking about with reels too? Just want to make sure. We won't stick on this for too long, but the other thing is video's king right now. Your posts like on your feed, on Instagram feed and Facebook feed, they're getting less engagement than what you're going to put in that little circle at the top of your profile, which is your stories. You can post videos and reels to stories, but you can also, any kind of post that you put on your feed, you should share it to your stories, because that's where consumers are spending most of their time right now on social media. The last thing on marketing, unless anyone else has stuff to add, would be traditional marketing. I think like printing posters, printing flyers, teaming up with your community. If you've got like a local grocery store or another business in town, you say, hey, can I, come put my poster up? That goes a long way. The brewery I used to work at, we would get flyers made on 8.5 by 11 paper, cut them in half, do 1,000 of them, and ask the grocery store if they're willing to put them in each grocery bag. And that stuff seems to really work well. So everything can get drowned out on social media. Not many people do traditional marketing, so it's kind of a good place if you want to get seen. Do you want to add anything, Teresa?
For the traditional marketing, thank you for bringing this up, because I think this goes into everything we've talked about so far. Thing A, the local community, the local vendors. So we are highlighting all the folks who are going to be in attendance, and then we're going to give everyone, we're going to share our social media handles with each other. We're going to share how to correctly spell each other's names, because that goes so far. Who's going to be involved and when, both physical businesses, food vendors, musicians, pop-up businesses. The QR code is that physical engagement in the tap room, in these businesses, brick and mortars. For this one specifically, folks scan the QR code and then they could pre-order the steins for the day of, so we knew how we were doing marketing-wise, KPI-wise, because we could see how many pre-orders were coming in from the QR code that was scanned. So we printed these all around the tap room, all around the community, and then we would resize it differently for Instagram stories, Instagram static content. So one image that we were sort of honing in on went both physical and digital. And then the day after the event, when the excitement was still really fresh, we, going back to the reels, shared a thank you reel. We shared videos from the day and then people saw themselves in it, and then they were more likely to reshare it and send it to their friends if they saw themselves being represented in the content. So that was, we could see how many how many DMs it was being sent to. Obviously you can't see where those are going, but you can see how many people are privately sharing it. So a little went a long way, and we were really grateful for something like this to have the legs that it did.
Thank you. We're going to go over some legal stuff. We're also going to go over recurring events in the tap room. We're about halfway through. Does anyone have any questions about marketing before we move on? Go ahead.
Did you wind up separating out your QR codes to drive which funnel was coming through, whether it was in tap room or out of tap room, the QR codes?
That's a good question.
For us, we could see which of the 3 tap rooms, which one was performing better than, because it would drive to which tap room, and then the customer could select, just like selecting a t-shirt size in a merch category, they could select which tap room they were going to, but we did not put, I think it's super helpful if you put, where did you hear about this event? Anytime we have private event inquiries come through, we do just that. Hey, why are you reaching out in the first place about a private event? Was it a word of mouth from a buddy? Was it you saw our product in the grocery store? Was it you visited the tap room and you're already familiar with what we have to offer? So for me, reaching out to the potential party, that gives me a leg up, because I can use that in the initial email and in small talk trying to make that sale.
Which brings us to another great topic. How many of you are doing private events right now? That's great. Do you guys want to talk all about private events, any kind of success stories, tips?
Children's parties are awesome. There's a lot of breweries in our area that will not do kids' birthday parties. I highly recommend it. Parents love to come in, and yes, there are children running around, and it's hectic and crazy, and it takes a lot of your patience to get through it, but the parents really appreciate a place where they can gather and hang out and drink, and those are some of our most lucrative events. Those baby showers, awesome. Don't dismiss an event just because you don't think that the subject of the event is of drinking age. It can be very valuable. One of the things I just wanted to speak about, because I saw the QR code, and when you do an event that is ticketed, my advice is acknowledge the ticket fees as being ridiculous, and encourage people to come into your tap room to buy tickets. And you get them, for the event, and you get them in outside of the event. So that's something where when you're faced with doing things that you can kind of turn that around and give, acknowledge that something is arduous, but then give an alternative and get people in the door even more often. So
That's a great point. I saw a couple questions. Go ahead.
Just a question, Eric. Do you have a separate kind of policy written for children's stuff?
we do have an event policy that people have to sign, and one of my partners is a lawyer, so it's like kind of art, it's just like a 5-page document, and it's ridiculous. But it's not kid specific, but it does require there to be, people present, and, sometimes parents could, ignore their children and let them get out of hand, but if they see you stepping in to parent their child, then they usually feel shame and will take charge.
I also on the kid topic, is that genuinely your experience that respond? Because we have the opposite experience. And we, my husband and I have 4 kids, we want our brewery to be kid friendly, but it's been really challenging. And we've had the experience that we give parents feedback and they don't take it, or they are.
I don't speak to the parents, I speak to the children.
Yeah.
And when a stranger comes up and starts, telling you this is why, jumping off those stools could be dangerous and why you might hurt yourself. Just all of a sudden, that does a lot for parents when they hear another person, explaining to their child why it's inappropriate to behave that way. So that's been my tactic.
We could do a whole session on kids in the tap room. Do you have, for parties, what's the sweet spot age group? Do you have a separate space for it, or do you let them mix in with the regular crowd?
No, so we when it comes to, we have 2 forms of events. We have what we call a semi-private event where they just reserve some tables, and then we have a completely private event where they shut down our tap room. And we don't like to do that, for several reasons. It's just all we have is our one room. But we've done a mix of both. With the children's events, it's helpful if they do a completely private event for the most part. But that's not to say that it doesn't work otherwise, because when they do, we've had the semi-private events, and they take up 2 or 3 tables. But at those times of days, we're more likely to have other parents with young children in too. So it's not like these children's parties come in on Friday night when we're having live music or something. But one thing I do recommend, which does not work, children karaoke. Don't.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, we're a pretty kid-friendly bar as well. We've actually had similar experiences of doing private parties for baby showers or for first or second birthdays, as well as semi-private. Somebody runs the system you. One of the things that we struggle with though is when we have these semi-private parties that happen to have kids, we actually have a hard time getting people in the door during their business hours because they sort of walk by, see a bunch of kids, assume it's a party, and sort of communicate about it. Do you guys do anything on like the marketing side to let people know, like, hey, there might be a bunch of 5-year-olds running around, but we still have plenty of space for you, we still have plenty of space for your dog, like that sort of thing. Like, how do you communicate with people about those?
In those scenarios, I usually spend more time towards the front doors and make sure that everyone that comes in is welcomed, and I try to, you know, communicate with them and you know, say this is what's going on and I'll find you a space, and so like, you know, just kind of massage that situation and make people feel welcome and comfortable. But yes, otherwise, like, if you just ignore it, like, young couples will look at that and walk right out.
Any more questions?
Just from a financial side, do you guys, you throw your private events, is it by the tab or is it a pay one price?
I was going to say, I like to be as open with the customer as possible. I like to hear what they are thinking in terms of budget for guest count for folks under 21. That makes I'm not going to charge private events where there are maybe a first birthday party where there might be some pregnant people or folks not drinking because of age or whatever reason. I'm not going to charge the same for that I would an open bar wedding. So just really getting, communicating with the customer, and it's not a one size fits all is what I've learned often by mistake when I have tried to employ that one size fits all, that it's not the case because every event is unique. Some might use it as a networking event for a corporate situation. Some might use it as a surprise engagement. So I just really love hearing the reasons why folks are coming to the tap room and how I can give them their dream event in a set space that they will make their own.
Yes, so we do minimum tabs. You know, so if you're gonna bring 50 people in, they're offsetting 50 customers. You know, and it depends on the day, you know, of course. If it's a Tuesday, yeah, it's gonna be a much lower minimum tab than if it's on a Saturday at 4 o'clock. Yeah, it's like, you just gotta be smart about what you're doing. You don't wanna offset, you know, whatever your average tab is, you know, we're probably at 35, 40 bucks. You know, the average tab. And, you know, you just do the math. You know, all right, so here's what we're doing as a minimum tab. And then, and the way we work that is at the end of the night, if someone hasn't spent their minimum tab, which happens, I would say more rarely, but they can buy beer to go, or we'll give them gift cards. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's the same thing, money, right? So that's kind of how we manage it. And I have found, though, that, I don't know what everyone else's experience is, but people are definitely getting way more competitive on, you know, the type of fees that they charge for running an event space, to where they might not be doing much at all. And I'm shocked, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, and I don't know about you guys, but I've had experiences before I did minimum tabs where, yeah, we're bringing in 50 people, we're bringing 50 people, and I'll order water. You know, you're like, oh, we just lost our ass. Yeah, so, and that's something that I do bring up to people when they ask us, like, hey, can we do this? I'm like, well, you know, here's the thing, is you're offsetting people that, you know, are paying money to be here. And I don't have that from you, and I don't have any assurance. So we do a minimum tab, and that's it. I mean, if they don't like it, they can walk away. But definitely it's getting more competitive, the event space, and the rentals, and the fees, all that stuff. I don't know, that's what I've seen.
And talking about competition, I was just going to bring up, especially when you're booking like music or, for instance, recurring events, how do you guys navigate, you know, other breweries in the area or bars and restaurants and competing with their events and kind of working together so that you can all be successful, while not stepping on each other's toes, but kind of also looking out for your own business.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's really just, there isn't a lot going on in our downtown, so, stepping on each other's toes is not an issue, but the breweries in our region, the things that we do that would possibly conflict would mostly be trivia nights, so we've tried to schedule our trivia nights on the nights that the closest breweries aren't having theirs. And then also there are, open mic nights. There are other bars that have music venues that we try to not schedule our open mic nights when they do theirs. But outside of that, our events are kind of unique to us, so we don't have to worry about that too much.
Does anyone out there run into that issue where you're trying to book music or do some sort of establish a recurring event and you're having a hard time competing with the neighborhood, or it's tough? I'm looking directly at you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I would recommend, if you're gonna start a new event, at least look at your neighbors and see what they're doing. And, I had an instance where we've been doing comedy night, I booked it. I've been doing it now for the second Saturday of every month for 4 months. And I've got it booked through the year. This has worked out well. And then a brewery very close to me, all of a sudden, they're having the same comedy group come the week before. And I'm like, we're 5 minutes apart. Can we split it up by like 2 weeks? Like, I'm not asking for a lot here. I'm not saying don't do it, but, you're having yours now all of a sudden 1 week before mine. It's like, I didn't know you had that. Well, you could just look at my website. You know that I have it because it's the same company. You can look on my website and it's already there. It's scheduled. It's already on my events. And it's just like, I don't know if that looks like a smooth, but it is what it is. I may still, I sell those out. Those are something that definitely from a marketing standpoint, and getting some new people in your tap room, I would look into those comedy nights. Of course, as it grows, and it's going to be like everything else. I was one of 16 breweries in the Campbell district when I first opened, and now I share a space with 50, some 60. So the pie just gets chopped up. But I would just use caution. Do a little research. Don't blame the local brewery. Well, I didn't know. No, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, what we did back when I work in CB's is kind of in a small town, and we had another distillery right across the street, a couple bars, and we had all sorts of trivia nights and things like that going on in town. So what we did is we actually all would get together once a month for drinks and kind of say like, hey, here's what we want to do this month, here's what we want to do for the year. We would plan our Halloween parties together so that the town always had something different going on. We weren't stepping on each other's toes. We always we're attracting crowds to the village, and we would promote each other. We'd be like, hey, our Halloween parties, Saturday, go over to the, distillery afterwards, or they're doing theirs on Friday. And it really worked out for all of us. And it's kind of like, you just push people to stop at multiple locations and keep it interesting, and it drives a lot of traffic to the community. So that's kind of my piece of advice for that. Do you have anything you want to add?
What we've all said, just keep an open line of communication. It means so much to me when bands reach out and say, hey, we're playing this location, do you have a do not compete? Or is this too close a date? Or another local brewery was starting trivia the same night as ours. Hey, we're thinking of starting trivia tonight. We did some research. We see it's the same night as yours. So I know we all are, at the end of the day, we're in friendly competition with each other, but the folks who aren't at least reaching out, it's noticeable. But I want everyone to succeed. I know when places have their anniversaries every year. I know when places do their quarterly big events, but there's only so many Saturdays in October for Oktoberfest, right? We're all competing with, this year there's only 4, last year there were 5. I'm not nervous, it's fine. It's fine, look that far in advance, it's fine.
Yeah.
I love Oktoberfest, it's fine.
And like on busy events like that too, in the Finger Lakes, are there any brewers in here in the Finger Lakes region? Yeah, so you guys, like Stout Month and stuff like that. Did any of you participate in Stout Month? That was pretty successful, right? So basically there was different stout releases all at breweries throughout the Finger Lakes region, and each brewery you went to had a different stout from another brewery, and it's a good way to kind of work together to capitalize on something bigger than just your own brewery. Did you want to add to that back there? Sorry.
No.
Okay, cool. So the other thing, we have a few more minutes here. Are there any questions? Is there anything someone in the room really wants to talk about or ask before we run out of time? Yeah, go ahead.
So our tap room is like a 99 seat capacity, kind of single room, but we have a little bit of sectional separation that we can achieve. But we still categorically do not rent our space out to single parties on days that we would regularly be open. And we've done that, we've made that kind of decision based on the fact that we would be disrupting kind of regular activity and confusing maybe people that might be there for the first time, might have made their way out. So I'm curious to either the panel or anyone else in the room. I know that there is some success with doing this. Probably not something we'll consider, but how do you communicate that to your regular crowd or to your attention base, essentially? People that are watching you on social media or absorbing your marketing in a way that doesn't make them feel excluded or doesn't make their weekend feel disrupted.
We do it, we don't like to do it. So it has to be worthwhile. So the financial component has to be there. Usually when we close down, we'll do a block of hours either at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day. And then we communicate through social media and put signs up and then, put a sign on the door. But yeah, we also tend to be more amicable to the idea in times that when we looked like, oh yeah, we didn't do very well that day. There's certain holidays, school holidays, especially when everyone leaves. We're in an area where the people are affluent enough that they will travel and they will leave during holidays, but there's no tourism other than Halloween tourism in our area. So there's certain times of year that just mass exoduses occur. And so if people want to, contact us and shut us down and have a party, it's like, we'll do it. But yeah, it's not an easy decision. And we've had success, but it's always stressful, and I don't like to do it, but we just have to.
Jack, I'm sure I can answer that question too. We've been doing that for 7 years, so we have a spot, I kind of feel like we have the same. It's a little bit out of the way in town. We put a couple signs on the table, it's your retirement, it's a birthday party, or whatever. We don't give them a lot of attention. This is your spot for your 2 hours. They hang around the brewery. So basically, you get about 30 people that you would have met at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's almost always so it's not giving them too much attention. Like, this is your own personal spot. You stay here. You get all the special attention. You don't need special attention. You see a couple, table tents say this is yours. Those 2 hours, they fill it up, and when people come in and aren't part of that party, they're like, oh wow, it's 5 different. Those people are on Tuesday. This is wild. So I would say we're the opposite in northern New York. That those little parties are big kick butt because we do that like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. We've got to work. People are like, oh, it's pretty lively for this time of the day.
we're lucky, we were able to toss people a section. Kind of
You know,
say,
they don't actually stay there anyway, just go somewhere else, hang out and manage. But I think that those do it well, instead of giving it the whole building, which is,
Yeah, we absolutely prefer those.
Yeah, we only rent out the space. We have kind of like, we have a much larger space that's under development. I only need $1 million to finish up that. So if anyone has $1 million they want to throw me, I'm all for it. But so we have an event space, and then we've got like where the bar area is, and it's got some seating. So we've only once rented out the whole event space. You know, they didn't care about money. They just like, yeah, whatever, it's no problem. You know, it's like hard to pass up on that. So you know, we just, but mostly share your concerns. We have a big outside area. So during the summer, we're hoping that the weather's nice, and then it's not a problem. We don't have to worry about it. So if it's raining, well then, you know, like, but we'll just do posts on social media, put up a sign, and just kind of, yeah, you recognize it could hurt a regular customer, they may be mad, but I mean, they see the number of people, and like, all right, get it. That's it. It's not much of a conversation.
So we have just about 4 minutes here. One last note I just wanted to make before we take any final questions. After your events, how many of you are sending out surveys? So it's really important to send a survey out if you have the capability. It goes back to having a newsletter, having someone dedicated to helping you with that. It goes a long way to find out if people enjoyed your event, what you can do better, who attended your event. You can ask demographic questions. So highly recommend surveys if you can, and getting feedback. Even if you just have your taproom staff, if you can't send a survey out, have your taproom staff ask people while they're there, are you having fun? How did you hear about us? What can we do better? Those kind of things. So just getting that customer feedback. Any other questions? We've got about 3 minutes.
Chloe, if I may add to the,
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
addition to the customer feedback, one of the most successful tools I've learned, if I can leave you all with this, is a SWOT chart after your event. Successes, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It has saved me so many times. I am so tired after the events, there's nothing more I want to do than just have a beer and sit down. But when it is fresh in your brain and you have heard, oh, the successes, ABC, oh, opportunities, I didn't think of this. Weaknesses, this could be improved. Threats, it could be something realistic, it could be something irrational, but when it is fresh in your brain, because you will not remember that stuff come next year, and it has helped me plan and execute and just, it's made, yeah. So, and that could come from listening to customers, listening to staff, and just what your own, you might be a little biased if the event went really well, you're like, yeah, I don't need a SWOT chart. Or if the event didn't go well, you're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of weaknesses. So just try to take your own biases out of it, but
That's a great point, Teresa. Thank you so much for bringing that up, for sure. Any other last questions?
I just also like to say, there's a great value in events outside of your tap room as well. So take advantage of that. New York State is great about the single-day permits, and you could just expand your tap room and your income potential by taking advantage of all of those opportunities to partner with other groups, other organizations, and get outside of your tap room.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Thank you so much for your time, you guys, and everyone who attended this session. I hope it was helpful, and we could talk all day about events, so hopefully we got what we could squeezed into this 1 hour.
thank you, Chloe. Come on.